Khenpo Sodargye, leaders, teachers, and students. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad to see all of you here. It is my pleasure to welcome you to today's lecture. Today, we are fortunate to have invited Khenpo Sodargye to give a speech at Lanzhou Business College. The title of Khenpo's speech is A Selfless Heart Makes a Boundless World. It is the selflessness of heaven and earth that created life. It is the selflessness of our parents that gave us life. So, what can our own selflessness accomplish? Selflessness brings joy and fulfillment to both ourselves and others. In the Book of Changes, there is a line. Heaven's vigor urges self-improvement. Earth's gentleness inspires great virtue. The ancients believed that the earth is solid and gentle, and a gentleman's character should be the same. The virtuous showed compassion and wisdom. Their hearts are as broad and generous as the earth itself. There's nothing that they couldn't bear. Some say that life is a journey we take through the Saha world. There are changing experiences of joy and sorrow. So, upon such journey, are they the subtle twists and gentle turns? Nowadays, in this era overflowing with material desires, how long has it been since we last communicated with our own souls? Have we already lost our way? Unable to find an exit in life? How can we achieve what's said in the Analects? Calm, composed, gentle, graceful. How can we inspire a life that is beautiful? Hence today, we're honored to have the esteemed Khenpo Sodargye to unveil our life's curtain of confusion. Now, would everyone please stand? Let us give a warm round of applause to welcome the compassionate Khenpo Sodargye to the stage. Please be seated. First, let us invite Associate Professor Zhang from the School of Business and Media at Lanzhou Business College to deliver the welcome speech. Please give a warm welcome to everyone.
Respected Khenpo Sodargye, distinguished guests, teachers, and students, thank you all very much for coming to our school this afternoon to participate in this special event. School of Business and Media, Institute of Chinese Studies, Lanzhou Business College. I warmly welcome Khenpo Sodargye and each and every one of you here today. For each one of us, all of us, the external world is where we exist. How we view it and how we treat it, how we balance ourselves with the environment is an issue that needs to be addressed. At the same time, we also need to handle the relationship with ourselves, seeking inner peace, harmony, and even a state of perfection. We need one eye looking outward and one eye looking inward. We must seek a path within the laws of nature, society, and ourselves. Tibetan Buddhism is subtle and profound. I believe that today we are fortunate to have the affinity to hear the voice of wisdom from Khenpo Sodargye. We will most certainly be inspired. Thank you, everyone.
We will now invite Professor Khenpo Sodargye to speak.
Dear teachers, dear students, good afternoon to you all. The topic of our discussion today is A Selfless Heart Makes the World Vast. Of course, speaking personally, I am a follower of Tibetan Buddhism. I am also just an ordinary Buddhist monk. For many years, I have truly had great faith in Buddhism. It can be said that over the course of more than 30 years, I have devoted all my energy and time to the Dharma, focusing on its study during this process. The first thing I want to share with everyone is that Buddhism is truly profound and unfathomable. If any person in the world at any given time were to carefully practice, diligently study, and explore its profound meanings, they will greatly benefit. This is in fact the result of my own experience from my years of study. I especially hope that many intellectuals among us who now need the nourishing and sustaining support of the Dharma, or the gentle infusion of its profound wisdom, love, and compassion, if they can experience such profound wisdom and deep compassion through Buddhism, I truly believe with all my heart that your life will always have purpose and is meaningful. So first of all, I want to encourage each and every one of you to, within your lifetime, understand to some extent the profound and vast aspects of Buddhism. At the same time, if you have some genuine realizations or experiences yourself, you can share the spirit with those around you, with people who are connected to you. The topic that we are elaborating on and discussing today can be explained from the perspective of Buddhism or interpreted from a worldly point of view, because the source of human suffering is simply our attachment to ourselves. It arises from our clinging to the ego. All the inequalities that exist in the world today and all kinds of psychological imbalances that they bring us are forms of suffering. This suffering, in fact, is our attachment to the self. In Buddhism, this self-attachment is called Sakkaya Drishti. Sakkaya Drishti is a Sanskrit term from India, also known as self-attachment or attachment to mind. In Buddhism, attachment to this self and what is mine causes samsara and all its suffering. When we have an attachment to ourselves or our possessions, in fact, all suffering originates from it. There was a scholar in India, a very great, highly respected Buddhist scholar called Shantideva. In his own words, he once said, as long as we are attached to the self, all suffering will only increase. Perhaps each of you teachers and students here have also observed before that all of your physical or mental suffering comes from your own personal attachment, whether it's in your daily life, whether it is relationships, work, anxiety, or various worries. If you trace their root cause, it should be our so-called attachment to self. This attachment to self is not only the cause of human suffering, but also includes the animal world and the 6 realms of samsara described in Buddhism. The source of all suffering in the world is this attachment to self. For this reason, the way of the Bodhisattva also said, all the joy the world contains has come through wishing happiness for others, while all the misery in this world has come through wanting pleasure for oneself. This holds a very profound meaning. So, first of all, everyone must fully understand that the root of all suffering in the world is attachment to the self. With this attachment, just as the renowned great Indian Madhyamaka master Chandrakirti said, once there is attachment to I, there will also be attachment to mine. With the attachment to mine in the 6 realms of samsara, we turn endlessly like buckets on a water wheel. These sayings and maxims, they are things that our young people nowadays should understand. Also, in the brief explanation of the 7 points of mind training, it is stated, All the suffering in the world originates from self-grasping. Ultimately, we cannot blame others. When you often encounter suffering in your life, the source of this suffering should be traced back to its root, which is attachment to the self. I think everyone must understand this point, as it contains particularly profound truths. These profound truths can only be fully understood through the relevant Buddhist scriptures and treatises. Speaking for myself, I have really been interested in literature since I was young. When I was at school, I found that many of the worldly principles simply could not be easily explained at all. In daily life, I often experienced suffering, and I wondered whether the source of this suffering, whether it comes from the external world or from the mind. When we observe it, we discover that these suffering are not from outside causes, but come from our minds. And our minds are also tied to self-attachment. So everyone here, we do not want to experience any kind of suffering in this world at all. And we wish to live our entire life in happiness. We wish to be joyful. This is a common goal that everybody probably has. However, oftentimes our life or fate do not go according to our hopes and expectations. Instead, in each and every one of our lives, we encounter many injustices and hardships that we never anticipated. The source of this suffering, we must first understand, is self-attachment. This self-attachment, we need to observe it. Buddhism offers a very detailed analysis of self-attachment. This kind of analysis is generally able to effectively reveal the false appearance of it. In other words, in essence, it can unveil its true nature and lift its veil. It can be said that in Buddhism, whether explained as the altruistic bodhicitta or introduced as emptiness, we can fully understand that what we were originally attached to is not the real truth. I remember the ideas of some of the ancient Greek philosophers, especially Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, the philosophers in the past. In their literature, there are also detailed descriptions regarding this particular aspect. Plato had a thoughtful dialogue with his teacher, Socrates. This dialogue is now called the Republic. Some of you here may have at some point read it before. The Republic consists of many brief dialogues with his teacher. It discusses demonstrating certain philosophical ideas. And I remember a particular story. It's quite similar to the truth we talk about today regarding dispelling ignorance and overcoming ego attachment. Long ago, there was once a place with an especially long and hidden cave. At the top of this cave, an opening let a sliver of light shone in. This light could reach all the way to the bottom of the cave. In the middle of the dark cave, there were many prisoners inside. These prisoners were very pitiful. Their hands, feet, and even their heads were all bound. They couldn't move at all and could only stare at the wall in front of them every day. Behind them, above their heads, was a blazing torch. The light from the torch, together with the beam of light from the outside wall above, shined directly into the wall in front of them. A path ran through the middle, and many people walked along it. Some were even bathing or doing actions. These prisoners would often see these images projected onto the wall. After watching for so long, they eventually took these images to be reality, really. They had no idea that there was a bright world outside. But among them, one person broke free from the restraints. He followed the light outside, and it was full of light. It turned out what they believed to be true was all fake. Thinking this, he wanted to save his friends too. So he went back into the cave to tell everyone, saying what they see were all images, all fake. He tried every possible way to convince them, but no one accepted it because they had already grown accustomed to these images and illusions. They thought this person had truly gone mad, and eventually they even executed him. What this story tells us is that sometimes humans, we think what we own and cling to is real, but their nature is not actually like that. We think the self exists and what belongs to it exists. Everyone thinks this way. In fact, thousands upon thousands, countless people believe that the self exists. But the principle taught in Buddhism that there truly is no self. When we see it, we realize our lifelong belief about the existence of self. When analyzed through a certain kind of Buddhist reasoning, is in fact on the contrary to what we originally believed. They're all not real. They don't truly exist. You could say that when we had mistaken the false for the real, the original truth was already gone. That original truth became false. Just like what's said in Dream of Red Chamber. When we see unreal as real, the original real becomes not real. I think although this is a well-known saying in the world, you should use it to reflect on the principles in Buddhism. It requires thoughtful considerations. Ever since childhood, all the way through our schooling, and even throughout our entire adult lives, in various ways, we have believed that this self should exist. But in this regard, we've never truly thought about what this self is. The more we become attached to this self in our daily experience, then naturally we can say the more suffering would arise in our lives. We cannot assume that because many people are attached to it, it must be real. This thinking is not logical. In Buddhism, we also have similar cases to this. For example, Chandrakirti said in his commentary on the 400 stanzas on the Middle Way that there was once a king who received a prophecy from a Brahmin who specialized in observing stars. The Brahmin warned the king that soon poisonous rain would fall across the country. Whoever drank it, anyone that drank it, would definitely go mad. Eventually, after the rain, everyone in his country who drank the rainwater did indeed go mad. The king was the only one who did not go mad, but everyone saw him as the crazy one. So the king had no choice but to drink the poisonous water himself, and he ended up becoming the same as the rest of them. This allegory is quite similar to what we see in today's society, because each of us is attached to status and to emotions. Everyone living in big cities wants to know, do you have a house or car? What are your salary and income? What kind of benefits do you have? What is your family background? Aside from this, there are basically very few conversations that actually have a real substance or theory. Public opinion in society can be described as basically a mess, to be honest, as we can all see. Whether through news or media, as we can all see, the things that can truly guide us and turn our hearts towards goodness. How much education and how many ideas out there like this can we actually find, even though people believe it, even if they discuss it, even though everyone is especially eager and enthusiastic about it, but what we are pursuing, is it really real or is it actually fake? I hope everyone can think about this carefully. Without reflection, we may spend our lives constantly chasing and pursuing things that aren't even real. Yet, what we have not attained through our pursuit may actually be something genuine. Within Buddhism, there are positive and impartial perspectives. It should address all things in the world, including the material world and the sentient world, as well as all-encompassing fields of knowledge. There are descriptions of all of these. Sometimes, as I keep studying, I find that I develop tremendous faith in Buddhism. This faith isn't superstition. It is not a blind faith, nor is it a biased sort of faith. It's not because I am wearing these monastic robes. It's not because that I myself am a Buddhist, so that I selfishly have an unwavering faith in Buddhism. I don't think that's true. Over many years, I have read various theories from ancient and modern times, both from China and abroad. I found that, indeed, whether it's astronomy, geography, humanities, epistemology, as well as the vast sea of knowledge in every field, each wise person has their own unique qualities. But Buddhism, recognized as having a 2,556-year history, as the Buddha was born 2,556 years ago, throughout such a long span of time and history, the teachings spoken by the Buddha have become better understood by later generations, who uncover their profound mysteries. And there has not been anyone who could say they have overturned some of his ideas. There's no one. Now that human beings have entered the 21st century in terms of material civilization, it's more advanced than any previous century. There have been breakthrough developments and significant progress. But regarding our thinking, if people wish to develop in a virtuous way, even the civilization of ancient Greece cannot be compared with the Eastern culture. What can be found in the philosophical thoughts of Buddhism? This, I think that here at Lanzhou, from a historical perspective, this area should have a very profound connection with Buddhist culture. Yesterday, I just went to Wu-wei, actually. There, the great Sakya Pandita from our Tibetan Buddhism, there is his entire journey of spreading the Dharma, including his ultimate parinirvana. Although his stupa has gone through many significant earthquakes and various destructive movements over the years, it still remains in the area and it's rather complete and intact. At the same time, Kumarajiva had also once lived there. He lived there for 17 years, where he also completed some of his translation work, and you can still visit and venerate his Tang relic today. Likewise, I learned about more places in Gansu, like the Danhuang Caves, which has a whole lot of records on Buddhist histories and should have some very profound causes and connections. Many of you sitting here today, whether you're teachers or students, will have done some research in this area. The Dunhuang Research Academy, I heard, is also located here in Lanzhou, because some time ago, they also invited me to go to have a discussion with them. I'd also like to look into it later on, since Danhuang's culture is indeed truly worth researching. Many young people nowadays may not be particularly interested in the kinds of fields with deep and profound meaning. Many of them now are learning things rather superficially, like it's all about which brand name clothes to buy, how to doll themselves up, and what kind of friends that they should chase after. Even the unique atmosphere found in many universities and their hopes, dreams, and aspirations do not involve seeking the deepest aspects of our human civilization. And also, the source of this civilization, I believe that Buddhism is, in my opinion, the most suitable path that can genuinely bring benefits to our hearts. In fact, the material wealth that we possess in our daily lives now may not be the most meaningful to all of us in this lifetime or to the next generation. It might not leave much of real significance. Think about it. Emperors, generals, and wealthy people in history, they must have accumulated a great deal of wealth, whether it was their residences, their carriages, or the land they owned. They were all extremely wealthy. But looking at history today, the material wealth that people had, none of it remains. They all vanished, leaving nothing. It's only the spiritual wealth that continues to be passed down. Poetry from Song, Tang, Yuan, Ming, Qing. We still benefit from them endlessly today. The philosophical ideas of the ancient times, such as those of Confucian, Taoist, and Buddhist, even after thousands or hundreds of years, these masters' thoughts are still recorded in words. For us, the value of their writings exceeds much more than their material wealth. So I think in our society today, it can be said that we are living in an era that is especially obsessed with wealth. Everyone is seeking things from the outside world. I've visited many universities, many students there. All they're concerned with are things to do with status and money, like finding a good job, a good spouse, buying good clothes, and so on. Aside from this, they seek basically nothing else. Some professors of the universities say many college students are just muddling through their school life. Other than that, they basically don't have any truly valuable ideals of their own. This kind of situation, of course, is a societal issue and also a widespread phenomenon. But in some schools in Western countries, this is indeed not the case. In terms of values, they really cherish their time. They make sure to carefully spend all of their time on the pursuit of knowledge. So the first thing that came to my mind today is we need to understand that there are still many mysterious things in this world. These mysterious things can be unraveled through the wisdom of ancient civilizations, especially Buddhism. But today, young people may not necessarily have a strong interest in this area. So I really hope that many intellectuals or young people can make good use of their own time. Many of you here are graduate or PhD students. During your entire process of research and immersion, throughout every stage, what is the real truth about life that you have discovered? If we only think that people come into this world just to eat and drink for a few decades and then it all ends, then there really isn't much difference between us and the animal. Even if we're creative or artistic, we are still ignorant of our past and future lives and don't understand the law of karma. If we don't understand these truths, I think there's still a lot of ignorance in humanity. So we should rack our brains, and as intellectuals, we should seek out the real truth of our life. While we're searching, I think when it comes to the spirit of seeking knowledge, it really has to be backed by a kind of diligence, a steady effort to keep improving. I sincerely hope that in our ongoing pursuit of learning, first, we need to understand that the source of suffering is self-attachment, and self-attachment is an illusion. According to the teachings of Buddhism, through long-term habituation and practice, gradually reducing self-attachment, and ultimately will realize the truth of emptiness. Some people might think the emptiness taught in Buddhism means not caring about anything in life at all, since they're all considered empty. But that's not the case. The true emptiness that Buddhism teaches is that all phenomena that appear to us now, their true nature is empty, but in appearance, they are not empty. If you understand this principle, it will bring tremendous benefit to your entire life and your ways of living. When our minds are selfless, the whole world becomes incredibly vast and boundless. At this time, we need to learn to practice complete selfless dedication. Nowadays, many college students and intellectuals are all being trained in individualism and self-interest. Some time ago at Peking University, this became a very hot topic. Some professors stood out to say that what schools are cultivating now is self-interest. If someone with self-interest gains power, it'll turn into the worst corruption. Why is that? Because they want everything to revolve around themselves. When they're self-centered, there's nothing that they won't destroy. As a student or a teacher, if you do everything for your own benefit, you would never consider the outside world or other people's feelings at all. I've heard that at some universities, in just a short period of time, many cats have been abused and killed. This shows that the students at this university lack both compassion and a real love for animals. Some people might not understand and think that animal abuse on the surface is not a big deal. But this reveals a deeper issue, that this person is irresponsible towards life. Doesn't matter human or animals, once they have power, they might trample on human life as well. As everyone knows, when Hitler was in school, his grades were actually very good, and he was quite well cultivated in many respects. But later, under various influences, he committed all kinds of evil. Apart from protecting himself, he was reckless with humanity, killing or harming anyone at his will. The issue is the mindset. So nowadays, in schools, we shouldn't just focus on grades alone. The most important thing is our character and moral value. If we want to protect ourselves, it's best to also look after those around us as well. If we can cultivate a spirit of selflessness, then in fact, your remarkable achievements in this world should be truly vast indeed. In the past, Lu Xu Chongqiu was considered a very famous encyclopedia in China. It was compiled by the biological father of Qin Shi Huang, and in it, it is stated, heaven, earth, sun, moon, and the seasons all give selflessly to everyone. What this means is that because heaven is not selfish, it is able to cover the entire world. If heaven was to harbor selfishness, it might only cover a part of the world. It could never really cover everything. If the earth had a selfish heart, it might only support some living things and not care for others at all. It could never support all things in the world. Likewise, the sun and the moon aren't idle in the sky. Because the sun and moon are not selfish, they shine on the world. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter aren't selfish. If they have selfishness, spring might last longer, or summer would linger and never leave, which would mess with all the natural processes. So I think it really does require a certain kind of wisdom, this kind of wisdom. What do you believe brings the most happiness and the greatest sense of relaxation to a person's life? It's an altruistic heart, or in other words, a selfless heart. Byron Katie published a book that I read the other day. It's a book by Byron Katie called Loving What Is. Many people had enjoyed this book, so I read it too. The book indeed contains some truly selfless ideas. There are many examples. For instance, if I like someone, but this person is irresponsible to me, and then they do a lot of things that really hurt me. But here, you should ask yourself in return, do you really believe this? Are you absolutely sure that he doesn't like you? Take a look at this certainty too. Is it really true or is it not? When you think about it, you'll see that it's actually a misunderstanding, an illusion. It turns out it was simply an untrue thought of your own. Even if he does act that way, in the end, you should be able to understand all of his actions. Why is it in today's society so much pain comes from arguments, including those within families? Why are there so many wars that break out between countries? They're all rooted in self-centered ideas. There's a saying in ancient China that the shape of Chinese character I is a weapon. So it not only strikes oneself, but also strikes others. It is because of this weapon that many people are harmed. Because of me and my attachments, be it world peace or peace among nations. It becomes very difficult to build a truly harmonious society. In this way, families and societies are made unhappy. No organization is truly considered at peace. If everyone only thinks about their own development in various ways, it's true that not everyone will necessarily be happy. People of the past used to say, a gentleman is generous, a villain is arrogant, an evil person is bold, and a good person is blessed. A true gentleman has a very broad and open heart. If an issue arises, he won't fuss about details. What is the biggest culprit in our families and in society? It's that our hearts are too narrow-minded. We cannot handle even the smallest things that we encounter. Problems are small, but we're very fragile, unable to face it. Then we start to resist. During this process, all kinds of woe arise in our heart. This may also lead to various unpleasant or even improper behaviors in your actions in some cases. Nowadays, some of us grew up in an environment where we developed the habit of losing our temper. Losing temper is bad. A lot of this is caused by today's media, television, and movies. In Tibet, when families argue, we never throw plates like the Chinese. It's because we haven't been influenced by that culture. In Han Chinese households, people would smash things when they argue in their families. What's the point of that? It's completely useless. I've seen a rather famous person, as it happens. He's also a very well-known journalist. During his interview, he said that as long as you don't cause major damage, smashing plates is fine, which I completely disagree. If you haven't adjusted your mindset internally, even if you do smash a plate, does it actually have any real effect on your own mental state? It can do nothing at all. But if in your mind you can sincerely tolerate and accept others just as they are, then your anger and pain can naturally, in time, disappear on their own. The most crucial point is that because our minds are in fact so very narrow, sometimes we simply can't accept the things that happen outside of ourselves. In the past, there was a Japanese Zen master named Muso who also said, if there is dust in your eyes, the world will seem very narrow. If in your heart you don't treat this matter as something especially serious, then the whole world is very vast. You could say nothing has happened. Our universe is incredibly vast and immense. Within it, our lives are even smaller than a grass. When you lose your temper and suffer like this, who are you really hurting? You're not hurting anyone. How many people are there in total in all of Lanzhou? There's so many people, and if you get mad, if you break a plate, can you destroy this world? Can you end it right away? Absolutely not. If you have Mahayana Buddhist education, when you react to these types of situations, such as when you feel angry or experience discomfort, at this moment, if you can reflect inwardly, you won't treat this matter as something very important. This kind of method should be able to help you remain calm. In the past, Master Woman of the Song Dynasty, as many of you know, he has this very famous quote, "Spring brings flowers, autumn the moon, summer a cool breeze, winter snow." If there's no trivial matter in your heart, it's the best season of the human world. I think this is very well said. Throughout spring, summer, autumn, and winter, the external environment is so beautiful. Why should we let a trivial matter linger in our minds and brood over it? Why should it bother us and not let go? In the end, what kind of consequences will such a mindset lead to? In some universities, when students fail exams, many people jump off buildings, which is a very unwise behavior. In fact, there is not just one path in life. If there were only one and you couldn't make it through, you have no way out, only a dead end. Then you'd give up. But in reality, life offers even more choices than crossroads. If you can't go down one path, you can try another. If this fails, try a new one. If you can't make it through this particular path, it means you lack the right conditions. Choose another one. Likewise, many young people nowadays have issues with their relationships. They'd commit suicide for someone. I've seen university students troubled by this issue. If you like someone, but they don't like you back. It feels as if the world has turned black. In your eyes, it's like there's only that one person in the whole world. And if that person doesn't like you, everyone else in the world has already died. But actually, that's not the case at all. From the perspective of us monastics, or from our point of view, there are so many people in this world, and there are truly countless different paths in life. At times like this, if we can just broaden our hearts a little, even just a little bit more, many of our worries and pains will simply vanish. All these afflictions would be effortlessly resolved. So I think that today, as we gather here, for some of us, we all need to make many adjustments in our hearts. And as for how to make these adjustments, of course, if you have the chance to learn about the altruistic mind in Buddhism, that would be the best way. In Buddhism, there is Mahayana Buddhism and Theravada Buddhism. Theravada Buddhism acknowledges attaining personal liberation and being free from all suffering. This is their mindset or idea. So nowadays, this doctrine is very popular and widely accepted in many countries such as Myanmar and Sri Lanka, among others as well. On the other hand, Mahayana Buddhism actually tries to let go of attachment to the self as much as possible. In all aspects of my life, I focus on benefiting others as a priority. That is their mindset. When we have this kind of spirit or this kind of philosophy of benefiting others, then our ego can be easily weakened. If our sense of self gradually begins to fade away,
our intention and actions to help others will become more and more apparent. At this time, one's own afflictions and suffering will naturally decrease. This is a very powerful secret. I truly hope that many of you, as you go about your everyday routines and experience the moments that fill your daily lives, even when you feel very troubled, can still do your best within your ability to assist and help others. Fully focus your attention and energy and your goals on helping others. At this time, our narrow ways of thinking and tiny mindset of self-preservation will gradually disappear completely without leaving a trace. For example, just like Jet Li, who was at one point very famous in the country. In fact, when he was still very young, his net worth was already quite impressively in the billions. But he used to always think about how he could truly enjoy his life to the fullest, how he could succeed in every single aspect of his life. Later, after some time, he eventually realized that benefiting only oneself is not truly advantageous for humanity, or even themselves. So he began to do some volunteering and charity work. He tried his very best to help and support others, guided by the enduring principles of Mahayana Buddhism. In the process of helping others, he discovered that his original way of thinking was actually, in fact, not really very genuine at all. Also, Fei Wong, who's quite well known nowadays, when her family first had a child born with a cleft lip, they were very distressed. They struggled with whether or not to reveal this to the public. They kept worrying about what would be best and were constantly conflicted, but later they felt, not only is our child suffering in this world, there are also others everywhere else in the world. But fortunately, we have the means to go abroad for surgery and so on. They have the resources. But they thought there are still many other mothers' children in this world who face the same kind of suffering. These children would also end up with particularly difficult lives, and they wanted to change this. So later they established a charitable hospital and shared this with the public, forming their truly altruistic charitable activity. She said, "It was only at this point that I fully understood that my previous strong attachment to self was actually a rather misguided way of behaving. Therefore, for many of us here today, especially during our student years, I now feel that at this moment, the most important thing is to cultivate our moral character. Virtue cultivation is important. If our moral character is not developed, then our compassion, wisdom, and altruism, as well as their faith, and so on, if these important qualities are not carefully cultivated, if one focuses solely on the pursuit of money, family, and work, then if a person is raised up like this, it's hard to say whether they will truly benefit society or even their own family. So, what does our society need most right now? It's not money. We could say that money is already sufficient. Everyone's good fortune as a result of their actions from past lives are not necessarily the same. For some people, no matter how hard they work, may not possess great wealth in this lifetime, while others, without being particularly diligent, may in their lifetime will still have enough to eat and wear, or may even have a very promising future. So in this process, our main focus, our main idea is to, in particular, look at students and teachers alike and realize that the meaning of life is not just about one's own wealth or status. The true meaning of life should be to help others. If we can truly and sincerely open our hearts with compassion and even help all sentient beings life after life, then the Buddhist philosophy is indeed very profound and remarkably vast. This point I just mentioned is not because I myself am a Buddhist. It is something I have come to after many years of research. The educational philosophy of Buddhism is not just about a few short decades. Buddhism teaches that if we study well now in our daily lives and steadily accumulate wisdom, we can be benefited not only in our present lifetime, but also in our future lives as well. Of all current educational philosophies, which 100-year educational plan can compare to this? Does any other education teach philosophies lasting endless lifetimes? Everyone here can see this for yourself. The scope of Buddhist education is not limited to just us human beings alone, but rather extends far beyond that. It also encompasses all living beings in the world. Is it necessary for us to care for all living beings in the world with compassion? In fact, it is very necessary. Every living being in the world, all of them experience both suffering and happiness. When they experience suffering, we should always do our utmost to eliminate their pain to the best of our ability. Some people may think that if they're human beings, then we should try our best to help them, but that animals or non-human beings do not necessarily need to be protected. They believe we should kill them or exploit them for our own benefit. This, in fact, is a completely misguided and very mistaken view. I hope that everyone here today should, in terms of the meaning of life and in terms of the rights and duties of living beings, take time in the future to reflect on these matters. Because we have received a varied education, and among these education, there is some that is educational, but there is also some quite the opposite, misguided and incorrect. But this mistaken education, once it is instilled in your mind, is very difficult for a person to change. But such education, whether for our own survival or even for humanity as a whole, does it have any real value? Some of it, in fact, actually has a noticeably negative effect from time to time. When we are learning, we should always try to keep a clear and focused mind. Otherwise, I think that in schools, many people's minds are generally relatively pure, but once they graduate and enter society, they may be tainted by all sorts of influences. I've noticed that some students and teachers remain very pure in such educational environments, and their thoughts should be very clean and untainted. But once they enter society, when everyone around them is doing bad things, you may have no choice but to follow. As the renowned poet Du Fu once thoughtfully said, "Mountain spring water is clear, but once it leaves the mountain, it gradually becomes muddy." Regarding current education and some schools in our society today, I still have some very deep personal insights. When you are in school, things are relatively pure and peaceful. Under the guidance of teachers, your mind is calm and clear. Many students have also told me when they'll graduate and say that after I graduate, I will surely help humanity, I will definitely do my best. Apart from working in order to support myself financially, I will devote most of my time and energy to giving back to society. While you're at school, you have your slogans and have your own life plans, which is great. But once you enter society, within just a year or two, you may be completely tainted by the murky waters of the world. It's like the source of the Yellow River, which should be a sweet spring, very clear. But along the way, the soil is all yellow, and gradually, in the end, you can no longer see the sweet spring or any particularly clear water in the Yellow River. In our society today, as we see nowadays, as I often like to say, I often tell these college students, don't talk to me about this now. Don't boast big words. After you've worked in society for many decades, let's see then if you still have a heart as pure and untainted as you do now. By then, you may have been influenced by society, including learning to be corrupt, learning to engage in particularly deceitful behaviors, learning to lie, to kill, steal, commit adultery, and deceive. These are the most improper behaviors in Buddhism. Killing, stealing, as well as all kinds of improper sexual conduct and deviant acts that disrupt family harmony, all of these, along with lying and other improper behaviors in the world, slowly you learn all this. In the end, doing bad things in society turns out to make you look respectable and valuable in front of others. But if you are honest, very pure, and clean, everyone thinks there is something wrong with your thinking, or that you are useless and lack ability, and you become seen as a social outcast. Society is indeed quite bad in many respects in the present day and age, but I can't say that it is completely corrupt. It's not that all the values have completely collapsed. For everything that we see, we should carefully observe both its positive and negative. By viewing things from both perspectives, we find that after entering society, are you really encouraged to do good things each and every single day? Every day, in your thoughts, your actions, and in every aspect of your life, are you being taught to be responsible to society, be filial to your parents, care for your children, show them love? Are you being taught to protect all beings, including humans and animals, with compassion? How much of this kind of education is actually out there? Originally, we had social education, family education, and school education. For university students like you, you've received school education, then a social education at the end. But does social education still exist today? In fact, once a person leaves education, it's just like a tree that becomes separated from the source of water. We shouldn't think that after graduating from school, we'll never need education. This mindset's incorrect. As Buddhists, we should keep learning and practicing consistently throughout our lives. In fact, many intellectuals nowadays indeed, after leaving school, feel that they have already learned everything, and from then on, they stop studying. I think this kind of thinking and behavior is unreasonable. Even after you leave school, although you no longer need to study the school curriculum, there are still many things in this world that are valuable, that are meaningful to our lives, and can truly bring happiness to ourselves and others. There is a great deal of such knowledge. This kind of learning in Buddhism or other religions, or in other forms of social education, is something you must pursue. If you don't continue learning, as people have said before, your mind will stagnate. Once a person stops learning, their thinking comes to a standstill. When your thinking stagnates, your career may not necessarily progress. Even if it does progress, it may not necessarily be beneficial to yourself or to others. So in fact, there is plenty of room for us to keep learning. The famous poet and writer Victor Hugo has also once said, "There is one spectacle grander than the sea, that is the sky. But there is one spectacle even grander than the sky, that is the interior of the soul." Within our hearts, we can actually accept and embrace all kinds of knowledge. But what is most important? It depends on yourself. If we truly possess some knowledge that benefits others or helps society, and we keep learning continuously, then your life will definitely be brilliant. You will radiate meaningful light for yourself and for others. Otherwise, after we leave the structured environment of school, in most cases, all of our learning comes to a complete halt. Then we get busy with family and work. And even the work we do is just superficial, going through the motions, and in reality, it has always been this way. People completely separate themselves from truly profound knowledge. They abandon it and become disconnected. Once disconnected, your words and actions all operate in an improper or even somewhat irrational state. They function within an illusion. And I think this is very unwise. I especially hope that the students and teachers here will continue to learn important and valuable knowledge and skills throughout your lives. This is also indeed the case in Buddhism. A person should keep learning useful knowledge continuously right up until leaving this world. In Tibetan Buddhism, we have a renowned and very remarkable scholar called His Holiness Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. I met him once when I went to India. At the time, his enthusiasm for learning was indeed very remarkable, truly admirable. I read in his biography that when he was past 70, every day, he would study at least several pages of scriptures. In Tibetan Buddhism, there's a text called Words of My Perfect Teacher. He would at least read through several sections of it daily, continuing this practice until he passed away. I truly admire this kind of spirit from the bottom of my heart. In fact, the community in our school is an intellectual community. An intellectual community should have a strong attitude of valuing knowledge. If intellectuals end up talking only about money in their discussions and only discuss topics that are absolutely meaningless in this world, then at that point, the school and community can be said to exist in form only. In reality, it is just an empty shell. So, as a community of intellectuals, we often say this in the monastery as well. A monastery is in fact a community of Buddhist intellectuals. If within the monastery, research and study of Buddhism are not valued as they rightfully deserve, then no matter how magnificent the monastery appears, it has already become just an empty shell. Because its true essence, or its core and spirit, no longer exists. In the same way, as a teacher, if his mind is consumed by money, status, or competition, and a student's mind is filled only with all sorts of trivial worldly stories and all sorts of useless topics that people nowadays, in particular, especially like to talk about. And apart from these, there is no genuine altruistic intention. If the school lacks altruism, no will to help others, then the whole and complete direction of humanity, as we know it, I think it is without a doubt in a very sad and unfortunate state right now. This is a truly frightening thing. So whether it's students, teachers, or anyone else, what is most needed in our hearts? Of course, as ordinary people, as Buddhism calls us, ordinary worldly people, it's impossible not to have some self-protection and attachment to ourselves. But we can't let self-attachment get strong. All day when we wake up, we're thinking about ourselves. When we sleep, we think about ourselves. Even in dreams, we try to protect ourselves. We never really think about helping others or benefiting society in our daily lives. People like this, in fact, may not have a very broad space in which to live. Even if you do survive, your life may not necessarily be meaningful. So after studying in depth the philosophy, teachings, and principles of Mahayana Buddhism, what moved me was its selfless altruism. What is Mahayana Buddhism like? You all know as well. The so-called Mahayana Buddhism is about helping all living beings unconditionally. This is the very profound, fundamental essence of the Mahayana Buddhist spirit. But in our society today, people need conditions. If I help you, what do I get? If I support you, what will you give me in the future? There always has to be some kind of exchange, both sides negotiating terms. What makes Mahayana Buddhism so great? Where does its greatness truly lie? It doesn't involve any conditions at all. As long as sentient beings are suffering, we will, no matter what, give our all to help them. This is the truly selfless, most noble and most admirable aspect of Mahayana Buddhism. Something that ordinary people find extremely difficult to achieve. So I think that many of our social organizations, including some schools, should promote this kind of philosophy. If our society as a whole is entirely self-centered, then in the end, humanity may truly commit enormous sins. If it's all really selfish talk, then although the slogans we shout sound beautiful, in reality, if everything we do is just self-preservation, then in order to establish and protect ourselves, we might, if we have the power, wipe out or destroy everyone around us. It's a real possibility. So as human beings, as individuals, we not only need wisdom, but this wisdom must also be compassionate. Nowadays, some intellectuals in schools can be considered very smart and highly knowledgeable in everything they do. They are not like the intellectuals of the past. They are skilled and proficient in technology, but they possess only a kind of cleverness. They never really consider moral civilization or how to help society and humanity in terms of higher ideals. So today, I'm just speaking my mind, saying whatever comes to me. In short, if our hearts are free from selfishness and self-interest, then as individuals, our lives should be very meaningful. For the people around us and for the whole world, we should rely on this kind of compassion to illuminate the entire world. It will also bring light to the whole world. At this time, our own compassion, empathy, kindness, patience, and gentle understanding will make the external world appear truly very beautiful as well. All the living beings we see, each and every one of them should be worth loving for. So I hope everyone can do their best to reduce selfishness and self-interest in your hearts. And do your best to help the sentient beings around us with whom we share a connection. I think we'll end our brief discussion here. All right?